The great hall of the Vathari Palace glimmered under the soft luminescence of floating energy orbs. Each orb cast a gentle glow on the translucent walls, revealing swirling patterns of alien artistry. The air was thick with anticipation. Today was no ordinary day. The human delegation had arrived on Kareth, the Vathari homeworld, for a peace treaty that could decide the fate of two civilizations. Queen Sarathis, ruler of the Vathari, moved with her usual grace. Glided across the polished floor, her iridescent robes trailing behind her like liquid light. Her golden eyes scanned the hall, noting every detail, the positioning of guards, the exact placement of the delegation, even the whispers of nervous nobles. She had faced countless crises in her decades-long reign, yet she remained composed, commanding, untouchable, or so she thought. That calm shattered the moment her eyes fell on a human standing among the guards. Lieutenant Daniel Cross. His presence alone shouldn't have mattered. Humans were well known for their rigid discipline and bravery, but he seemed different. There was something about him that made her heart stop for a brief, impossible moment. His face, his posture, even the set of his jit, was as if a ghost from her past had stepped through time and space. A ghost she had thought she would never see again, her breath caught. For a moment the room seemed to tilt, and the conversations around her blurred. Into silence, she froze in place, not out of fear, but out of memory. Her ex-husband, Prince Kalen, lost to the chaos of a war that had nearly destroyed the Vathari, came alive in Daniel's expression. Daniel, completely unaware of the effect he had caused, straightened in his uniform. His green eyes swept the room, noting his surroundings and his role. He was trained to be vigilant, but there was something unusual about the atmosphere in the hall. The Queen's gaze was intense, almost unnerving. He had never seen anyone look at him like that. Sarathis quickly masked her shock, turning her attention to the assembly. "Welcome, delegates," she said, her voice smooth and commanding. "We gather today not as adversaries, but as partners seeking peace." The humans stepped forward cautiously, their leader, Ambassador Elaine Torres, giving a respectful nod. "Your Majesty," she said, "we are honored to be here on Kareth. We hope to reach a mutual understanding that benefits both our worlds." The discussion of trade routes and territorial boundaries began. Sarathis found it impossible to focus. Her eyes kept returning to Daniel. He moved with quiet confidence, scanning the crowd, observing every potential threat. Yet it was not his skill that unnerved her. It was that sense of familiarity she could not explain. Memories she had buried for decades stirred within her of laughter shared in the gardens of her old palace, midnight walks under twin moons. Of promises that had been broken in blood and betrayal, she shifted slightly, trying to regain composure. No one must notice, especially not the human delegates, especially not Daniel. But the deeper she tried to suppress it, the more her mind clung to that fleeting resemblance. After the formalities, the assembly broke for a brief recess. Delegates mingled, exchanging cautious words and polite gestures. Sarathis excused herself, moving toward the balcony overlooking the cityscape. She needed space to think, to process what had just shaken her core. Daniel, meanwhile, remained in position, eyes scanning the palace. Despite the elegance around him, he felt uneasy. Something about the Queen's reaction had been unusual. He wasn't sure if it was fear, curiosity, or recognition, but her momentary pause had been noticeable. The city outside glowed with life. Sky trams floated through the air, their engines emitting a soft hum. Buildings spiraled upward, reflecting the unique architecture of the Vathari civilization. Daniel's thoughts, however, were not on the city. They were on the woman he had seen moments ago, whose gaze seemed to pierce straight through him. Later, that evening, Sarathis convened a private meeting with her closest advisors. The chamber was dimly lit, the air thick with tension. "Something is unusual about that human," she said, her voice low. "There is a familiarity I cannot ignore." Her chief aide Lirin raised an eyebrow. "Your Majesty, you are the ruler of this empire. Humans are unpredictable, but they are not dangerous in ways beyond what we already know." Perhaps it is mere coincidence. Sarathis shook her head. Coincidence does not explain the resemblance. It is too strong. Ow. Precise, that man. He reminds me of Kalen. Liren's expression softened. Kalen, your majesty. He was lost so many cycles ago. We have searched, but... His voice trailed off. Sarathis clenched her fists. I know, but the resemblance is not just in the features. It is in the way he moves, the way he holds. Himself? There is a presence there I cannot ignore. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Liren said, if it is necessary, we can discreetly investigate his background, see if there is any connection to the royal lineage. Sarathis nodded. Do it. But quietly. No one must know. Not yet. Meanwhile, Daniel returned to his quarters, trying to make sense of the day. His training demanded discipline, yet he could not shake the feeling that something larger was at play. The Queen's gaze lingered in his mind, haunting him. He had faced battles, aliens, and political intrigue before, but this was different. There was something personal, though he could not yet place it. That night, sleep came in fits. Dreams haunted him, visions of alien landscapes, a golden-eyed woman. Calling his name, whispers of secrets buried in the stars. He awoke in a sweat, heart pounding, and realized that the day's events were only the beginning. The next morning, the treaty negotiations resumed. Sarathis maintained her regal composure, but her mind was restless. Every time Daniel spoke, every time he moved or glanced her way, she felt a tug at memories long thought lost. She could no longer deny it. There was something extraordinary about this human, something connected to her past, to a life she had thought erased. As the day progressed, subtle tests were set into motion. Advisors discreetly observed Daniel, noting mannerisms, combat readiness, and unusual instincts. Sarathis herself watched from a distance, studying him as one might study a living puzzle. Every detail mattered. Every nuance could reveal the truth. At the same time, Daniel began to notice odd coincidences. Certain gestures of the Queen, fleeting expressions, even minor reactions. There was recognition there. But recognition of what? He had no idea. All he knew was that he felt drawn toward her, as if some invisible force was guiding him closer. By evening, the humans were invited to a ceremonial dinner in honor of the treaty. The grand hall was illuminated by cascading lights, the air filled with the hum of alien music. Sarathis entered, radiant as ever, and Daniel found himself momentarily frozen. I could not look away, and neither could she. The resemblance, the connection, the unspoken question of fate, everything hung between them like a fragile thread. The dinner proceeded with careful diplomacy. Words were exchanged, toasts made, and subtle negotiations continued. Yet beneath the surface, something deeper was stirring. Sarathis could not shake the feeling that history had returned to her doorstep, wrapped in human form. Daniel, unknowingly, had become a living bridge between past and present, between alien and human, between loss and the possibility of something new. By the end of the evening, the first part of the story was set. Alliances had begun, memories had awakened, and a mystery larger than either human or Vathri, history loomed on the horizon. The stage was set for revelations, danger, and the possibility that one human could change the course of two civilizations, perhaps heal the wounds of a queen's broken heart. Sarathis returned to her private chambers that night, eyes lingering on the balcony as Daniel patrolled below. For the first time in decades, she allowed herself to hope. Hope that the man who reminded her of Kalen might also hold the key to a future she had not dared imagine. And somewhere deep within the corridors of the palace, Daniel felt the weight of unseen forces, sensing that his life had changed forever. The unexpected encounter had just begun, and neither human nor queen would ever be the same. The morning sun filtered through the crystalline windows of the Vathari palace, painting the floor with shimmering light. Queen Sarathis sat in her private chambers, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of a holotablet that displayed intelligence reports. Her mind was far from the political matters at hand. Her thoughts circled endlessly around one question. Who was Lieutenant Daniel Cross, and why did he feel so familiar? Her advisors had brought her reports about his past, but they offered very little. Daniel was human, of course, trained by the United Earth Forces. His birth records were sparse, almost non-existent, which was unusual for someone in his position. He had been found as a young boy on a derelict colony ship drifting near Mars. The records only showed he had been adopted by a human family who raised him to be a soldier. Nothing about his origins hinted at anything extraordinary yet. Sarathis could not ignore the way he had moved during the assembly, the way he reacted during the brief moments of tension with precise instinct. There was a sharpness to him that went beyond human training, reminded her too much of Kalen, her lost husband. She pushed back a sigh, telling herself she was overthinking. But deep down she knew she was not. She called Liren, her chief aide, into the chambers. "We need to know everything about him," she said, her voice steady but firm. "Every trace, every possibility that might connect him to someone I once knew." Liren bowed slightly. "It will be done, Your Majesty. But are you certain you wish to pursue this? Humans are unpredictable, and this could complicate the treaty." Sarathis nodded. "I do not care about politics for this moment. There is something about this man I must understand." Meanwhile, Daniel had been summoned to a private meeting with the Queen. He was escorted through long corridors lined with elegant, alien patterns and softly glowing lights. His heart beat faster. The Queen herself had requested this meeting, and he did not know why. Was it recognition? Curiosity? Or suspicion? When he entered her private chamber, he was greeted by the serene but commanding figure of Sarathis. She stood before a wide window overlooking the city, her posture as regal as ever. She turned toward him, and for a moment, Daniel felt a strange pull, a feeling of familiarity he could not place. "Lieutenant Cross," she said, her voice calm but intense. "I have questions about you. About your origins, your family, and your early years." Daniel straightened. "Your Majesty, I am not sure I can provide much. My birth parents are unknown to me. I only know what records the military provided when I enlisted." Sarathis's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him. "Yet there is something about you, a quality, a presence, that is remarkable, unusual for humans. Tell me, Daniel, do you have memories from early childhood, dreams, anything that seems out of place?" Daniel hesitated. "Do you have dreams?" "Sometimes strange ones. I see alien landscapes, ships I've never been on, and a woman. I don't know why, but I feel like I know her. Sometimes I wake up thinking she is real." Sarathis's breath caught. That description, that feeling so familiar. Could it be possible? Could this human be connected to Kalen, her ex-husband? She fought to maintain composure, but her curiosity burned. "Very well," she said finally. "I will arrange for further examination. Genetic testing, if you will. It will confirm your origins or rule out any connection to the Vathari lineage." Daniel blinked. "Genetic testing?" he asked. "Is that safe?" Sarathis gave a small nod. "Completely safe. But I must warn you, the results may surprise you." That afternoon, Daniel underwent the tests aboard the Queen's flagship. The process was precise and clinical, a mix of human and Vathari technology that scanned his DNA at a molecular level. While he waited for the results, he found himself walking the ship's corridors, trying to make sense of the strange pull he felt toward Sarathis. Meanwhile, Sarathis received preliminary data from her security team. The readings were intriguing. Daniel's genetic markers showed traces that were highly unusual for humans. Small sequences of DNA almost identical to Vathari royal bloodlines. Not enough to mark him as a full member of her species, but enough to suggest a rare connection. Her mind raced. Could this man be Kellen's child? Or perhaps some distant relative? She knew only one way to be certain: patience, observation, and more data. The next day, a subtle incident tested both their instincts. During a ceremonial inspection of the palace grounds, an explosion rocked the outer courtyard. Smoke rose as alarms blared. Daniel reacted instantly, diving into action before anyone else could move. He shielded civilians, guided them to safety, and neutralized the source of the explosion with a combination of human tactics and a fighting style. Unfamiliar to most humans, Sarathis watched from a balcony, her golden eyes wide. The precision of his movements, the instinctive way he assessed danger, was Kellen's fighting style. Style she had only taught to a handful of warriors in the Royal Guard decades ago. When the dust settled, Daniel stood among the frightened but unharmed civilians, breathing heavily but composed. The crowd erupted in quiet applause, but Sarathis did not move. She remained where she was, staring at him as if the explosion had opened a door to the past. That evening, she called Liren again. Prepare a secure chamber. Daniel will undergo the full genetic scan tonight. I want every sequence compared with the royal database. Everything. Liren hesitated. Your Majesty, you must be cautious. If he truly shares blood with Kalen, the political implications do not speak. Of politics now, Sarathis snapped softly. This is personal. Must know the truth. Meanwhile, Daniel could not shake the feeling that the palace held more secrets than anyone admitted. During dinner, he noticed subtle glances from the queen, moments of hesitation when she addressed him. It was almost as if she was trying to decide something, whether to trust him, to fear him, perhaps something else he could not yet name. That night, in the genetic testing chamber, the results began to emerge. Sarathis watched the readings scroll across the holographic display, her heart racing. The sequences were unmistakable. Certain segments matched Vathri royal DNA with a high probability. Daniel's heritage was extraordinary. He was not a full Vathri, but he carried the bloodline of the royal family. The revelation was both shocking and exhilarating. Daniel might be the child of Kalen, lost to time and war, and now returned under the most unlikely circumstances. Sarathis felt a rush of emotions: grief, relief, curiosity, and something she had not expected: hope. She decided to confront him. Directly the next morning, she requested another private meeting. Daniel entered, unaware of the revelations. Sarathis met him at the chamber's center, her gaze firm but gentle. Lieutenant Cross, she began, I have seen your genetic results. There is more to you than even you know. You may have Vathri royal blood. You may be connected to my former husband. Daniel's eyes widened. What? What do you mean? He asked, stepping closer. Are you saying I could be related to the Vathri? Sarathis nodded slowly. Yes, the probability is very high. I do not yet know how, but your presence here is no accident. You may be a living link to Kalen, to a past thought lost forever. Daniel's mind spun.
Oh.
Everything he thought he knew about himself. Dreams, the instincts, the sense of familiarity with this world suddenly made sense. His life, his path, had been leading him here to this very moment. Yet alongside the awe, a shadow of doubt crept in. And what does this mean? He asked. Cautiously, am I supposed to take a place in your court? Am I some kind of political pawn? Sarathis shook her head. No, your choice is yours. But you must understand, you are extraordinary, Daniel. Your bloodline, your instincts, your courage, they are rare. And they may prove vital to both our peoples in the days ahead. Words hung in the air. Daniel felt both fear and excitement. His life had been ordinary, disciplined, and structured till now. Now, he stood at the crossroads of history, with a queen who trusted him. A bloodline he did not fully understand, and dangers he had yet to imagine. That night, as he gazed out at the alien city below, Daniel realized that his journey was only beginning. He had uncovered the first layer of his past, but the deeper truths about his connection to Kalen, the queen, and the fragile peace between worlds remained hidden, and somewhere in the shadows. Unseen enemies watched, plotting to use this discovery for their own gain. The stage was set for intrigue, danger, and revelations that could change the course of two civilizations. Daniel knew he could not run from it. He could not hide from the bloodline that called to him, nor from the queen who now saw him as something more than a human soldier. The next chapter of their story had begun, and neither human nor queen would ever be the same. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when alarms blared across the Vathari Palace. The air trembled with urgency, and the normally serene corridors were flooded with guards running in every direction. Queen Sarathis' chambers erupted. In a flurry of aides and advisors, Sarathis herself remained calm, though her golden eyes flickered with concern. She had learned to separate panic from duty. Something was happening outside the palace walls.
Daniel Dangerous.
Daniel Cross, already on high alert, was summoned to the command center. He arrived to find officers shouting orders and security teams rushing to positions around the palace perimeter. He quickly assessed the situation. Nearby outpost had reported unusual activity, an armed group attempting to breach the outer palace gates. The group's technology was alien in design but heavily modified, suggesting both human and Vathari knowledge. Sarathis arrived at the command center moments later. She moved with the confidence of a ruler who had faced countless crises, but her eyes, for the first time in many cycles, were fixed on one human in particular. "Lieutenant Cross," she said, her voice steady, "you will lead the response team. You know this palace better than anyone. Protect the civilians at all costs." Daniel nodded. "Understood, Your Majesty. Evacuate civilians to the secure chambers and set up defensive perimeters. I'll handle the attackers." Within minutes, Daniel was at the forefront, moving with uncanny precision. His instincts, both human and something more, guided his decisions. He anticipated ambushes, directed the guards to cover key entry points, and diffused explosive devices before they could cause casualties. Sarathis watched from a balcony above, her heart pounding as she realized just how extraordinary this man was. Every movement, every decision, mirrored a style she had only seen in elite Vathari, warriors particularly in Kalen. The resemblance was no longer just in appearance. It was in action, in thought, in instinct. As the battle escalated, Daniel noticed a pattern in the attackers' strategy. They were not here for mere chaos. They were hunting someone. His mind raced, connecting pieces. Could they have discovered his possible link to Kalen? Could they know what Sarathis had learned about him? He moved to intercept a group attempting to infiltrate the main chamber. With precise strikes and calculated maneuvers, he neutralized the attackers one by one. His actions saved dozens of civilians and palace guards, and for a moment, it seemed the threat might be contained. Then a voice called from the shadows. "So, the prodigal Link returns," it sneered. A figure stepped into the light, a humanoid with dark armor, masked, exuding authority and menace. The commander of the rogue faction had arrived. Daniel recognized immediately that this was no ordinary enemy. This was someone who had studied both human and Vathari tactics, and had adapted them. The fight that followed was fierce. Daniel used every skill he had, combining human ingenuity with instincts that seemed almost innate. He moved with a grace and precision that stunned even the seasoned Vathari guards. Sarathis, unable to stay on the balcony, descended into the battle zone herself. She moved past shocked guards, her staff in hand, ready to assist. But before she could reach Daniel, the commander turned his attention to her, recognizing her importance. A sudden strike sent her stumbling, and a wave of dread washed over her. Daniel's eyes snapped to her. Without thinking, he surged forward, intercepting the attacker's next move. In one fluid motion, he blocked the strike aimed at Sarathis, and countered with a precise maneuver that sent the commander sprawling. The battle paused for a heartbeat. The queen and her guards stared at Daniel with awe, and Daniel himself felt something he had never felt before, deep connection, a sense that he was fulfilling a purpose beyond his understanding. The commander retreated, disappearing into the shadows, but not before leaving behind a chilling warning. "You cannot hide the truth, Cross. The past will find you." Sarathis helped steady herself, her mind racing. That voice, those words, it confirmed her fears. This rogue faction knew something about Daniel's origins. They were after him not because he was human, because of who he might be connected to her lost husband, to the royal lineage. Two secrets that could shake the foundations of the Vathari Empire. Back in the safety of her chambers, Sarathis, and Daniel reviewed the situation. Daniel's instincts and courage had saved countless lives, but now the stakes were higher than ever. "Who are they?" he asked, still catching his breath. Sarathis shook her head. "A faction within both our worlds. They have been lying in wait for decades, manipulating events from the shadows. They know about Kalen, and they have learned about you. You are a link to the past, Lieutenant Cross, and they fear what you represent, Daniel's mind world." His dreams, the strange instincts, the pull towards Sarathicide, all made sense now. His life was not random. It was connected to something far larger, something that neither human nor Vathri alone could fully comprehend. Sarathis placed a hand on his shoulder. "We must learn the full truth about your heritage. I want you to come with me to the ruins of Kellen's old palace. There may be records, clues, something that can confirm your connection and prepare us for what is coming." Daniel hesitated. "Are you saying I could be his son?" Sarathis's golden eyes softened. "It is possible, but the only way to be certain is to see for ourselves." The next day, they departed in a sleek transport ship, leaving the palace behind. The journey took them across jagged mountain ranges and oceans of shimmering liquid crystal, relics of Vathri engineering that still amazed Daniel. The ruins of Kellen's palace loomed on a remote plateau, long abandoned and partially destroyed during the war decades ago. As they approached, the air grew still, and the weight of history pressed down on them. The palace was a shadow of its former grandeur, with broken towers and scorched walls, but traces of beauty remained. Intricate carvings depicted past rulers and victories, and Daniel felt an inexplicable familiarity with every curve and detail. They entered the main hall, moving cautiously. Sarathis activated a preservation chamber, revealing holographic archives long hidden from the public. Images of Kalen, the Lost Prince, flashed before them. There were records of diplomatic missions, personal correspondences, and doubtednesses, and, crucially, recordings of Kalen escaping during the coup that had claimed his life, for so everyone thought. Sarathis and Daniel watched in silence. One recording showed a young Kalen carrying a small child, hiding from enemy forces. The child was human. The resemblance struck Daniel like a thunderbolt. Could this child be him? His heart raced. Memories and instincts he could not explain surged within him, connecting him to that distant past. Sarathis watched him closely. "Do you recognize anything?" she asked softly. Daniel swallowed hard. I think I do. The way he moves, the way he carries himself, it's familiar, too familiar." Before they could investigate further, the ruins shook violently. An ambush. The rogue faction had tracked them here, using cloaking devices to remain unseen until the perfect moment. The walls trembled as automated traps activated, and enemy forces poured in. Daniel and Sarathis reacted instantly. Daniel's instincts guided him through the chaos, neutralizing threats with efficiency and skill. Sarathis, wielding her energy staff, defended the archives and the precious holographic records. Together, they fought as one human and Vathri, past and present, instinct and strategy, facing overwhelming odds at the height of the battle. Daniel realized the attackers were after the archives. If they succeeded, centuries of history, including his possible heritage, would be destroyed. He doubled his efforts, relying on both human ingenuity and the instinctive combat techniques ingrained in him from a lineage he was only beginning to understand. Finally, the rogue faction retreated. Unable to match Daniel's combined human cleverness and Vathri instinct, the ruins fell silent once more. Sarathis and Daniel stood among the debris, breathing heavily, but alive. Sarathis placed a hand on Daniel's arm. "You saved this history, and perhaps yourself in the process. But we are not safe yet. This faction will not give up. They will continue to hunt you as long as the truth remains." Daniel nodded, determination settling into his chest. "Then, we prepare, we find the truth, and we make sure no one can use it against us, or against anyone else." As night fell over the ruins, the wind whispered through the broken towers, carrying secrets of the past. Daniel felt a new resolve, a purpose beyond being a soldier. He was more than human, more than Vathri blood, and now a bridge between worlds. Sarathis, watching him closely, realized that the man she had once merely studied as a curiosity had become something far more significant, a partner, an ally, and perhaps the key to a future she had never imagined. The truth of his past. It was beginning to surface, but the dangers were far from over. Forces both seen and hidden plotted in the shadows, aware that Daniel was more than he seemed. The next steps would test courage, loyalty, and the very bond between human and Vathri. And so, the story moved into a new phase, a phase where the past and present collided, where the unexpected link between a human and a queen could reshape the fate of two civilizations. The ruins of Kellen's old palace lay silent under a sky streaked with the light of twin moons. The air was heavy, thick with dust and the echoes of history. Queen Sarathis and Daniel Cross stood amidst the broken walls, their senses heightened. The rogue faction had retreated, but their presence left a lingering threat. Every shadow, every sound, could hide another attack. Sarathis moved carefully, her energy staff humming softly in her hands. "We cannot stay here long," she said. "But we must find the truth about your past. There are records that have never been touched since Kalen vanished. If we are lucky, they will reveal everything." Daniel nodded, scanning the corridors. His instincts, sharpened by both human training and something deeper within him, guided him. He felt a strange connection to this place, as if the stones themselves whispered memories. The ruins held secrets that were his by right or perhaps by fate. They entered a grand hall, mostly intact despite decades of neglect. A massive holoconsole, covered in dust and debris, sat at the center. Sarathis activated it with a wave of her hand, and images flickered to life. Scenes from the past appeared, Kalen walking the halls, speaking with aides, overseeing training exercises, and then a hidden sequence Galen carrying a small child through a secret passage, escaping unknown enemies. Daniel froze. The child's features, even in the flickering hologram, were hauntingly familiar. Could it be him? Memories long suppressed rose like tides in his mind. Flashes of alien landscapes, whispered names, instinctive skills he could never explain, all pieces fitting. Together, Sarathis watched him closely. "Do you recognize him?" she asked softly. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. I think it's me, that child. The child could be me." The queen's heart raced. If true, Daniel was the son of Kalen, the prince she had loved and lost. But the implications were enormous. His presence here, in the midst of negotiations between humans and Vathri, could change everything. Before they could process the revelation, alarms blared. The rogue faction had tracked them using hidden sensors. They had anticipated the queen's movements, and now they were closing in. Daniel and Sarathis had no time to react. The ruins trembled as automated defenses and ambushes triggered simultaneously. "Daniel, immediately assess the situation. We need to split. You protect the records and evacuate them to a safe location. I'll handle the attackers." Sarathis shook her head. "No, I will not leave these archives, and neither will you face them alone." Daniel nodded. "Then we moved together." They navigated the crumbling corridors, ambushed at every turn. Daniel's instincts guided them, dodging traps and neutralizing enemies with precision. Sarathis' staff emitted a brilliant light, deflecting projectiles and cutting through barriers. Together they moved as a seamless unit, their coordination uncanny human in Vathri. Present and past intertwined. Finally, they reached the inner sanctum of the palace. The rogue faction cornered them, armored soldiers filling the doorway. The leader, the same masked figure from before, stepped forward. "You cannot hide the truth forever, Cross," he sneered. "Your bloodline will bring chaos to both worlds, and we will stop you before that happens." Daniel's eyes narrowed. He understood the stakes now. This was not just about him, it was about history. It's about the fragile peace between humans and Vathri, about the legacy of Kalen. He tightened his fists. Then you will fail, he said, voice steady. The fight was intense. Daniel used both human ingenuity and Vathari combat instincts, striking with precision and agility. Sarathis supported him, her energy staff a blur of motion. The rogue faction, though skilled and well-prepared, was no match for their combined abilities. In the chaos, Daniel realized the faction's goal was the holorecords. If destroyed, the evidence of his heritage would vanish forever. He risked himself repeatedly to shield the console, deflecting attacks and using debris to create barriers. Sarathis fought beside him, protecting both him and the records. There. Movements in perfect synchronization, the leader of the rogue faction tried to escape with a portable data core containing copies of the archives. Daniel acted instinctively, chasing him through narrow corridors. With a final precise maneuver, he disarmed the leader, sending him crashing into a wall. The data core skidded across the floor and Daniel snatched it just as the leader attempted to flee again. Breathing heavily, Daniel turned to Sarathis. We did it. The records are safe. Sarathis nodded, her golden eyes filled with a mixture of relief and pride. Yes, but this only confirms what I feared. The faction knows about your heritage, and they will not stop until they control it or destroy it. Daniel examined the data core. Inside were detailed plans, histories, and secrets that revealed decades of manipulation by the rogue faction. They had infiltrated both human and Vathari governments, orchestrating events to destabilize both civilizations. Daniel's potential? As Kellen's heir was a threat to them, they could not allow it to exist unchallenged. Sarathis studied him.
Oh?
Her expression serious. We need to act carefully. Your heritage is more than a personal matter. It is a symbol. If revealed incorrectly, it could ignite war, or worse, make you a target of everyone who fears the past. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then we prepare. We gather allies, secure the information, and ensure this faction never threatens anyone again. For the next several cycles, they worked tirelessly. Daniel trained with Sarathis's elite guards, honing skills he didn't know he had. Sarathis coordinated with trusted advisors, ensuring the palace and the archives were secure. The bond between the human and the queen deepened, not just out of necessity, but out of respect and shared purpose. During this time, they uncovered more records. Messages between Kalen and loyal aides revealed that Daniel had been sent away as a child to protect him during the coup. His human upbringing had been deliberate, a way to shield him from enemies who sought the Vathari royal line. That his instincts, dreams, and even the rare combat skills were inherited, awakened only when needed. One evening, as the twin moons cast silver light across the palace, Sarathis and Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The wind was cool, carrying scents of alien flora. You've changed everything, Sarathis said softly. Your presence, your actions, they've altered the path of history. Daniel looked at her, feeling a mix of awe and responsibility. I didn't choose this path, but now that I'm here, I can't ignore it. I have to face it, no matter how dangerous it is. Sarathis nodded. And you won't be alone. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Their resolve was tested the very next day. Scouts reported movement in the outskirts of the city-cloaked vessels, unidentified, and moving fast. The rogue faction was regrouping, preparing for a larger assault. Daniel and Sarathis knew this would be more than a simple skirmish. It would be a battle not just for survival, but for the truth, for peace, and for the legacy of Kalen. They began planning. Daniel would lead a strike team to intercept the enemy, while Sarathis coordinated defensive measures and ensured civilians were protected. Every decision was critical. One misstep could cost lives, or destroy the fragile peace they had worked so hard to maintain. As night fell again, the city lights flickered in anticipation of the coming storm. Daniel checked his equipment, reviewed strategies, and felt the weight of his heritage settling on his shoulders. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a bridge between worlds, a link to a past that demanded resolution, and a protector of a future that depended on him. Sarathis approached, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You are ready," she said. "And remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is facing what you must, despite it." Daniel met her gaze, determination blazing in his green eyes. "Then we face it together." The ruins, the palace, the city, and their lives were all on the brink. The rogue faction would strike again. The truths of the past were dangerous, powerful, and potentially explosive. But for the first time, Daniel and Sarathis were not alone. They had each other, and they had the strength of two civilizations behind them. The dangerous revelations had set the stage. Soon, the climactic confrontation that would determine the fate of Daniel Sarathis, and both worlds would arrive. The city of Kareth lay quiet under the veil of dawn, but the calm was deceptive. Hidden in the distant mountains, the rogue faction assembled, their ships cloaked, weapons ready, and minds set on chaos. They had tracked Daniel Cross relentlessly, determined to erase any threat to their plans. Now, with the full knowledge of his heritage and the strength of the Vathri Queen behind him, they knew the time had come to strike. Queen Sarathis convened her council in the palace command room. The air was tense, alive with anticipation. "This will be their final attempt," she said, her golden eyes glinting with determination. "We cannot allow them to succeed, Daniel. Your instincts and courage will be vital. Every move we make must be precise." Daniel stood at her side, reviewing strategies on a holographic display. He had trained relentlessly for this moment, combining human tactics with the instincts inherited from Kalen. He felt the weight of his bloodline and responsibility pressing on him, but he welcomed it. He had been preparing for this, even without knowing it for his entire life. "The enemy will attempt to split our forces," Daniel said, pointing at multiple red blips on the display. "We need to anticipate diversion tactics, protect the civilians, and neutralize their command ship. That's their control hub. If we take it down, the rest will collapse." Sarathis nodded. "We will divide our forces. My best guards will secure the city's perimeter. You lead the strike team to the command ship. I will accompany you. We face this together." As they prepared, Daniel glanced at Sarathis. "I never imagined fighting alongside the Queen would feel like this." Sarathis gave a faint smile. "There is no time for imagining. There's only doing and surviving." The strike team boarded sleek Vathri fighters, engines humming with controlled power. Daniel took the lead, flanked by the best warriors and his trusted human soldiers. Sarathis followed closely, her staff glowing, a beacon of authority and strength. The ships lifted off, slicing through the sky, leaving the city behind, but keeping it in their minds. As they approached the rogue faction's position, cloaked ships emerged from the mountains, engaging them with sudden ferocity. Energy blasts lit the sky, shaking the fighters. Daniel's instincts kicked in. He maneuvered his craft with precision, dodging attacks, anticipating enemy patterns, and issuing commands to his team. Every move was calculated, yet instinctive, so his body remembered Kellen's training from decades past. Sarathis did, seated beside him in her fighter, guided energy blasts toward enemy ships, her staff projecting defensive shields that absorbed attacks. She marveled at Daniel's skill, not just his tactical mind, but his courage, his ability to face danger without hesitation. He was extraordinary, a living embodiment of human potential elevated by the legacy of Vathri blood. The battle intensified as they neared the command ship. It was heavily armored, emitting pulses of energy that disrupted communications. Daniel realized that a direct assault would be deadly. "We need a new approach," he said, eyes scanning the battlefield. "If we flank from below using the terrain for cover, we can disable their shields before entering." Sarathis nodded. "Do it. I trust your instincts." Daniel led the maneuver, guiding his team through narrow passes and using energy blasts to clear the path. The enemy was relentless, but Daniel's combination of human ingenuity and inherited skill kept them one step ahead. The command ship's shields flickered under their assault. Finally, they reached the command ship. Boarding it would be dangerous. Rogue faction had fortified it with both humans and Vathari mercenaries. Daniel signaled his team. On my mark. Move quickly, neutralize threats, and secure the core. The team entered the ship, immediately facing waves of resistance. Daniel moved with precise efficiency, striking with hand-to-hand combat and energy weapons. Each enemy was dispatched before they could react. Sarathis fought beside him, her staff a blur of motion, creating openings for Daniel and his team to advance in the heart of the ship. They found the faction's leader, the masked figure who had been hunting Daniel for weeks. He stood before a control console, energy weapons at the ready. So, the heir finally arrives, he sneered. You think you can stop me? Daniel's eyes narrowed. I don't think I know. The fight that followed was intense. The leader was skilled, blending human cunning with stolen Vathari techniques. But Daniel had the advantage of instinct, intuition, and an unwavering sense of purpose. Every move mirrored Kellen's precision, yet it was uniquely Daniel stronger, faster. And guided by the hope of protecting two civilizations, Sarathis intervened at critical moments. Her staff creating barriers, deflecting energy blasts, and providing cover. Together, they overwhelmed the rogue leader. With a final, decisive move, Daniel disarmed him, forcing the leader to surrender. The command ship, now under their control, allowed them to disable the remaining enemy forces. Across the battlefield, rogue ships either surrendered or retreated. The immediate threat was neutralized. Daniel and Sarathis had triumphed, not just through strength, but through courage, strategy, and trust in each other. Back in the city, the civilians emerged from hiding, witnessing the aftermath. The sky cleared, the ruins of battle fading into the horizon. Sarathis addressed her people. This victory is not mine alone, she said. It belongs to all who fought bravely, and to one among us whose courage has changed the course of history, Lieutenant Daniel Cross. Daniel felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had been trained to fight, to protect, but never had he imagined the impact of his actions. The Queen's acknowledgement warmed him, but he remained focused. There was still work to be done. After the celebrations, Sarathis and Daniel returned to the palace. In private, she turned to him. The battle is won, but your journey is just beginning. You are not just a soldier, Daniel. You are a bridge between human and Vathari. Your heritage, your courage, your choices, they matter to both our worlds. Daniel nodded, absorbing her words. I understand now. I can't ignore who I am or what I'm capable of. I will protect this legacy, and I will honor Kellen's memory. Sarathis studied him, her expression softening. And you will not be alone. We face the future together. Whatever challenges come, we meet them side by side. Over the following cycles, Daniel embraced his dual heritage, trained, studied Vathari history, and learned the intricacies of diplomacy and leadership. His bond with Sarathis deepened, built on trust, shared purpose, and mutual respect. Together, they forged stronger ties between humans and Vathari, ensuring that peace was not just a fragile treaty, but a lasting alliance. The rogue faction, though defeated, remained a reminder that vigilance was necessary. Daniel and Sarathis worked tirelessly to dismantle hidden networks, prevent uprisings, and expose conspiracies. With every challenge, Daniel's instincts, bravery, and unique heritage proved invaluable. One evening, standing on the palace balcony, Daniel looked out at the city bathed in golden light. The memories of battle and revelation were still fresh, but a sense of calm settled over him. He had found purpose, identity, and a role in shaping the future. Sarathis joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You've come far, Daniel. From a human soldier to something more, a leader, a protector, a symbol. Daniel smiled. I never imagined it could be like this. But I know one thing: I would not have survived without you or your trust. Sarathis's golden eyes met his. I would not have succeeded without you. Together, we have changed the course of history. As night descended, the twin moons reflected on the palace walls, casting light on a city ready to move forward. Daniel's journey, from a lost human child to the son of Kaelin, to a hero of two worlds, had reached a new beginning. The rogue faction had been defeated, but their threat served as a reminder that vigilance and courage were eternal duties. Daniel and Sarathis, united by trust and shared purpose, would face whatever came next. Together, they ensured that both humans and Vathri would thrive, bound not by fear, but by courage, understanding, and hope. In that moment, the story reached its culmination not in destruction, but in unity, bravery, and the enduring power of choice. Daniel Cross, the human with the legacy of Vathri royalty, stood tall beside Queen Sarathis, ready to shape a future where courage and heart would guide civilizations beyond the stars. And so, the saga concluded with victory earned through skill, loyalty, and the extraordinary strength of the human spirit intertwined with alien heritage.